Amber?
Ask your doctor about eye brands. Here's a special offer from Abacus. Purchase a new ring water heater with express installation, and we include a free garbage disposal, a new water heater, and a free disposal, both installed fast. Abacus Express Installation. You can count on us.
So Amber, is that you, Amber?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Amber.
Yeah, I was trying to let you know, I'll be at work during those times. So,
Oh, you mean at during the daytime?
no, you said the work will be from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and I'll be at work during those
Yeah,
times.
but this is for night students. You're in the day program.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I still got the email though.
That's what I'm trying to figure out how you got the email because I didn't send you an email. I sent it as an announcement. Yeah, no. So you're good till the morning. It was only supposed to go. So I don't know how you ended up on there, but no, you'll just see. I'll see you in the morning. I'll find out what happened. But yeah.
Okay.
It's a good thing. I mean, I guess they got you in Blackboard somehow, but maybe the wrong one. But you're in the morning, so yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Have a good evening at work.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
So got 3 people. Y'all give me a shout out. Let's see who else here. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good.
Okay, so I see Alexis, I see Ashley. So I hate wasting people's time, but we're just going to kind of be on hold until 6. Then we're going to get going. Tonight, just so y'all know what we're going to do, the exercise y'all did yesterday, some people did great on it. Some people didn't do good at all. I'm going to actually go through each question. So I'm going to be giving y'all a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll go through each one of those 20 questions. And that way you're going to see how to work the answer or how we arrive at the answer. You're going to be able to redo the exercise. So as long as you watch the PowerPoint and pay attention, you'll be able to go retake it and make 100, and I'll take the higher grade. So if you did great, well, that's fantastic. If you didn't do great, it's your chance to learn, to be able to learn what you didn't know how to do, and then you can make 100 on that exercise. Then you have 30 questions, just true, false, and it's over the, y'all had access to print out the answer key from the notes that y'all did last week. So we'll touch on that. You'll have that exercise tonight. I'm gonna have y'all redo law exercise y'all did. Some people did great, but several students did not do good at all. And we're going to talk about it. I just wanted to mention that while we're waiting. I'm waiting to see. We still have, and we have Catherine. So it's just Elena, Catherine. So we've got online. I saw Brianna just a minute ago, but then. So and the other thing while we're waiting, I'm going to ask you guys to do tonight. We have portfolio projects, and I've had a chance to look at the portfolio project ideas. And you can see that some of the projects you could actually really invest a lot of time doing, and some are quicker. But what we're going to do, since we got a smaller number of people, we're going to make sure that you guys, everybody picks a topic by tonight to do so that you'll have a chance to present it for the class next week. So y'all are going to be doing it at least. Okay, good. So once Elena's on board, we're going to just get started because I think Catherine's working. So. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry, my computer crashed yesterday. We were going to have a session, and I just spent the whole evening getting my computer replaced. Right now, I'm having issues with the camera, so I'll have that fixed, but I'm sure by the next time we meet. Tonight, though, I'll show you, we're going to go over a couple of different things, but I wanted to go over a couple of points and make sure everybody's on the very same page. I mentioned just last week how when we started this and we went off campus, they were very, very strict. If there was an assignment, it was only going to be made available during our regularly scheduled class time. And then if it was due, it had to be turned in just exactly as if we were on campus. Then they got more relaxed about that and said, we can give them a little bit more time to get something turned in, but we're back to square one. And so it turns out, like, if there's an assignment that's due, there's an assignment posted, you need to do it. You're going to find, I follow a daily lesson plan. And so I'm following a plan that was put together by our corporate education department. But not only is everything kind of timed and do they have everything based on experience, this is probably the 15th time I've taught this exact class. And so if there's an exercise and I put 30 minutes, you can trust that I've had 13 other sets of students in class, and when we do it, they did the work and completed it in that 30 minutes. The reason I'm mentioning this is because there's a couple of things that have me very concerned, and I don't know exactly where the concern is, what's the cause. In a classroom setting, I could be able to get to the bottom of things much quicker. When you guys are distant education, sometimes I'll send y'all an email, I don't ever hear back. Sometimes I send a couple of emails, I don't hear back, or I send a text. The thing is, we've had assignments, and if there's 7 students in class, 6 students might do everything, and 1 student doesn't do any of them. Was it because that student had computer problems? Was the student would have been an absence? Does the student realize they have 2 grades that are zeros? And then the next day we'll have another assignment, and then there'll be 2 students who don't do something, and then 1 student maybe does poorly. This is kind of something that's new, and I know there's a lot of variables that can be at play, but the most important thing I need to convey to you guys, every night for the class, every night in our evening class, you're going to have an announcement, and the announcement's going to include whatever the assignments are you're going to be working on for the class period. So you read that assignment. If the assignment mentions that you're going to have 2 exercises, you're going to have a quiz and something else that you're going to turn in, know that you've got 2 assignments you're going to turn in. If you only turn in one, just understand it's going to result in a 0 grade. And so far, the very first set of classes we had, pharmacology, and math, they let us do something just because so many different programs, they had students that had zeros here and there. So we'd got to drop up to 3 of the assignment grades or quizzes. And so by doing that, it helps prevent some catastrophes, but I'm not going to be able to do that in the future. So I'm telling you all this. Last week, we had a couple of assignments. They were posted. Not only when I post something, guess what? My faculty coordinator's checking, reading, making sure she can read. And if she was a student, did she understand clearly? And all this is done as a backup. So, because we have to know what's going to happen when the student says, I didn't know anything about this. Well, then I even send out an email that I extended an opportunity to complete exercises that weren't done. And there's still just maybe 1 student or 2 students, it's not done. It only takes a couple of zeros and it can ruin your grade. So I'm just trying to make sure everybody understands this completely. I'm going to have a discussion with Catherine. I already had this discussion with her. She's at work and they asked her to work till 7. And I let her know, while yes, we are taking our classes, we're not on campus. But this is different than something that's called an asynchronous off campus. So you can take some courses off campus where you just do it at your own pace on your own schedule. But that's not the case with what we're doing. With what we're doing, it's just exactly as if we were in school at the time class is scheduled. The only difference is you're at home. And it's just because this coronavirus is a unique situation. But there's going to be work that maybe she's not even missing, that Catherine won't be able to do tonight just because she's not even leaving work till 7. When she does get home, she can't get started on inventory maintenance because by the time she gets started, it's time to be working on her law assignments. So what's she going to do? Just not worry about it? Or, what my point to her was, you just need to be mindful. You've got class at 5:50. If we were on campus, would you be working till 7 if you had class till 5:50? No. So whenever we have class and it's at 5:50 to 10:10, make sure that you reserve that time in the evening for class so that you're able to, if we're having a Zoom session, you're there, you're present while we're doing it. If not, whatever activities are going on, you've got your full focused, undivided attention. I don't want anybody to make a poor grade just because this is introducing some challenges that's going to be unique for everybody. But if you think about it, if you had 5 students and you tell them you've got 2 hours to study for a test, those 5 students each have 5 different approaches how they'll use their 2 hours. Now, in our case, when we have assignments or we have a 2-hour and 10-minute class, we've got certain things that you have to turn in, and then certain things that you do that are really just kind of at your own speed, your own pace. Last week, what are the reasons? There's reasons behind the things that y'all are doing. Last week, I had you do Chapter 2, Pharmacy Law and Pharmacy Practice, to go through, read that chapter, and summarize it as you're going along. And then last night, y'all had that open book. It was a test, open book test, but you should have had your notes. Like as you're reading it, that's to help you learn the material. Are you understanding what you're reading as you're reading it? Are you summarizing? Those notes should have helped you be able to go through that assignment pretty easily. So before we get to dismiss, I'm going to show you law. I actually have uploaded my notes for the chapter, and y'all can use those as you reattempt the exercise tonight. But when you're looking at my notes, and then look at the book and you're looking at my notes, and ask yourself, okay, could somebody be making these notes out of the chapter if they were like kind of watching TV and kind of playing on a phone? No, you have to be just focused. I had to be at a computer. I had to be reading the book and typing and just focusing. That was the only thing I was doing. And while I was doing it, I was determined what was my goal. I want to summarize this chapter. I want to summarize paragraphs. And so that's part of what I'm trying to help you guys do. I'll give you another, just an example. I've had students before, and one time a student told me that they just hate to read, they hate to study, that they think of school like going to the movies. And so school is like getting to just hear whatever the book says without having to read it. But it doesn't really work that way, because school, with the school, you see how massive these chapters are. You see how much material there is. And so when you read the chapter, you study the chapter. Whatever you don't have time for in class, you have time outside of class to work on or read. But that way, then when we do have a lecture, you'll already have some kind of foundation, something that's going to help you as the lecture is presented. You'll already have an idea of material that's going to be presented. Let's go ahead and jump over to in our inventory maintenance. So you'll see if you go to your announcements. So for tonight, we've got a Zoom session. So obviously it started in 15 minutes. 15. We're going to have a review. We're going to review what? We're going to review those 20 questions that were on that test that you had yesterday. We're going to work through each one of them step by step. So you're going to be able to write down notes or just follow along to make sure that you understand. And why? It's because you're going to be able to go retake the exercise from yesterday. Now, some people did extremely well on it. If it's up to you, if you don't want to retake it, that's fine. But otherwise, you can retake it. And you should be able to make 100, because we're going to go over each question. And then after that, so it tells you you've got 2 assignments. We're going to have this PowerPoint presentation. You can reattempt the thing from last night. And then second, there's going to be a true-false test. And so if you go over to your course content, you'll see that it's dated 4/14. This is a retake of what y'all did yesterday. When you click on this, this is that 20-question test. And even if you did well, you might go through it again. It wouldn't hurt. And maybe after the presentation, things might make a little more sense, but it certainly wouldn't hurt. Then for the true-false quiz, once you're done with this, you have a true-false quiz, which is one of these where it has a link. You click the link. You're going to go to the website, and then enter your name, and then PIMA. It's a very, very simple true-false test. You get your score, and then you're going to take a picture and post it. Now, here's what's most important. In your resources. So in your resources, if you go to resources, and then CER is just the abbreviation for Certification Exam Review, and that's it's a skinny orange book. So I don't know if it's working right. I mean, it's not working well. So I'm gonna let it try to work and see if it works. But if it goes out, it's my new computer. But this is the CER book. So if you go to this file, one of them here is to pick the option for the 20-question exam. Click on this file. This is the actual exam. So if you click on it, it'll download, and you can actually print it out, and that way you'll have it. And so if any of y'all have a printer, you'll be able to print this out and make notes or write on it or whatever. But this is the 20 questions that were in that test yesterday, and it's just in a written form. So if you have the opportunity, if not, it's something you can print later. You're going to have plenty of opportunity to just jot down notes and then fill them whenever it's convenient. Then you'll notice that there's the PowerPoint. This is the PowerPoint we're just about to start. And I try to make sure that you've got enough information to identify. So this is the actual quiz in hard copy if you want to print it up. This is a PDF of the PowerPoint. So some people like to print up PowerPoint slides. If we were in the classroom, I would have printed up PowerPoint slides to give to you so y'all have something to write on as we go along. But y'all are at home. Some of y'all have printers, some of you don't. But do you have access to open up the PowerPoint itself or print up the PDF of the PowerPoint or neither of them and print the hard copy? Or you don't have to print really any of them, but those are just options that are available. Okay, so the certification exam review is the book that I just showed you, the orange book. That book, you want to use it often. I've had students that'll go through the entire program and like at graduation, they'll tell me, holy cow, I just realized, boy, this summarizes so many things and it would have been great to, and I'm telling you, we used it all the time. I can, but just about any material we cover, you're going to find in the certification exam review book, it'll have it presented. It tries to summarize things and it tries to simplify. But this is your chapter 9, pharmacy inventory management. This is the exam you had yesterday, the 20 questions. The first question was, what is the cost called that includes the discounts the pharmacies receive for volume purchasing, prompt payment, or rebates from manufacturers for brand name drugs? And so, excuse me, when you look this up, you're going to find it's the acquisition. So the word acquire, it means to obtain. Like, how did you acquire that? When you acquire something, that means it becomes yours. So acquisition cost. And acquisition cost, that word, just the definition of acquisition cost is the cost to obtain something. What is usual and customary? That's a term that's used whenever you're just talking about the everyday price of something. If, let's say that you sell something, you're a pharmacist, and somebody comes into your pharmacy and wants to buy a bottle of generic Benadryl, 25 milligram, 100 capsules, and it's $4.99. That's your usual and customary price. A markup price is the price after you've factored in your cost. Average wholesale cost, that's a number we're going to talk about. It's kind of an invented number. But acquisition cost here, that's the answer. You receive a prescription for 30 tablets of amlodipine 10 milligram. It comes in a stock bottle of 90 tablets with an AWP of 156. Excuse me 1 second. AWP stands for average wholesale price. Originally, AWP was a dollar amount that was invented to be fair to people. If you were a pharmacy in Texas, a small independent pharmacy, and you ordered your drug stock from a warehouse, and the warehouse was in Houston, well, it's not going to cost as much for them to get it to you as if you were a pharmacy in Hawaii or Alaska. So what they did was they averaged, what does it cost for every pharmacy in the nation to buy one bottle of this product? Then they averaged it out, and they came up with this dollar amount that was called the AWP. And that was really, actually, it was a very reliable number when I first became a pharmacist, like 30 years ago. But over time, it was less meaningful. So just remember, AWP, I don't want y'all to get confused by it. Students always get confused when they see AWP less a percent. Just think of AWP as a price. That's the price for the bottle. The AWP is $156. The drug insurance PBM, and PBM is a pharmacy benefit manager. That's the third-party company that represents the insurance company, and between the pharmacy and the insurance company and reimbursement. With the PBM, they have this contract with the pharmacy. They're going to pay AWP minus 5% plus a $2.50 dispensing fee. So what's the reimbursement fee for the pharmacy? The first thing you've got to identify is what's the question? Second is what information do I need to be able to answer it? So the first question is, what is your reimbursement fee for the pharmacy? Well, they tell you the reimbursement is going to be AWP minus 5%, and then they're going to give you an additional $2.50 in dispensing. So first you got to calculate what was the AWP for. Where do we get this 30? This says you receive a prescription for 30. Yes, ma'am. Somebody have a question? Okay. You receive a prescription for 30 tablets. 30 tablets, and then we were given the AWP for 90. So the first thing we got to do is calculate the AWP for 30. And that this is where these numbers came from. We're dispensing 30. We pay $156 for 90. So the AWP for 90 is 156. So if you pay $156 for 90, how much would you pay for 30? And when you do the math, it's $52. So we just calculated our AWP. That's just step one. Now the drug insurance company, their contract is the pharmacy will pay AWP less 5%. So what does that mean? AWP minus 5%, that's the same thing as saying 100% AWP minus 5% AWP. So in other words, they're going to pay you 95% of the AWP. So we calculated the AWP for 30 is $2. If we want to calculate 95% of $52, what do? We convert that to a decimal and multiply. So 95% of $52, 95% as a decimal. So this right here, this is our first step towards the correct answer. We've calculated the AWP for 30 pills. We've calculated what the insurance, the first part of their reimbursement, and that's AWP minus 5%. So we've calculated this amount. What happens, a lot of times students will get really excited because 4940 will be one of the answer possibilities. They'll forget all about adding the $2.50 dispensing fee. So now you add the $2.50 dispensing fee, it's $51.90. Next one, a wholesaler charges you AWP for minus 8%. What will you pay for 21 tablets of 400 milligram gabapentin if the AWP is $82.50 for 100? So before I showed you, think about it. One, we need to figure out what is AWP minus 8%. It's going to be 100% AWP minus 8%, and 100 minus 8 is 92%. So right, just from the first part, without writing anything out, if you just think in your head, you're going to be charged 92% of AWP. But now we also learned how do we calculate AWP. There's a lot of extraneous information that's not necessary, and it can even be confusing. You don't need to know it's gabapentin 400 milligrams. All you need to know is it's 21 tablets. You need to know how much you paid for 100. So what is our AWP for 21 tablets? Once again, if you paid $82.50 for 100 tablets, you can do it a couple of different ways. One way is to just put $82.50 over 100 is how much over 21. Another way, and a lot of students like to do this, just divide $82.50 by 100. and you'll see how much you pay per tablet. So if you divide 8250 by 100, you get 0.825 per tablet. And then you can multiply that times 21 tablets, and you'll get the same answer, which is 1733. Now there's a second part. So we calculated the AWP for 21, but you've got to take off 8%. So you can do it a couple of different ways. One way is we calculated the AWP as 1733. We could put 1733 minus, figure out what 8% is of 1733, and then subtract it there. Or another option, I do it this way. I just think it's one step, at least it is to me, but I don't ever want to confuse somebody. But since AWP minus 8%, it's the same thing as 100% minus 8. It's 92. And we know 92% is the same as 0.92. We found out our AWP was 1733. We're able to find out. There we go. So now this is our final answer, 1594. And something you'll notice in the possibilities, 1733 was an option, and it was because a lot of students will forget the last step. You have to go through a couple of steps just to get this answer. And if you see it as one of the matching answer, one of the potential matches, you'll jump on it before you even realize, oh, I forgot to do that step. Whenever the overhead is greater than the gross profit, you have a what? So gross profit is whenever you take your sales and let's see, sales of everything minus your cost to purchase them leaves you with your net profit. The gross profit and still includes your I was going to ask you, so y'all are muted. What is overhead? Overhead is the cost of running business. So let's say that you buy something like toilet paper, and you have a 4-pack roll of toilet paper, and people are desperate. They're willing to pay $10 a pack, and you got them for $1 a pack. So every one of them you sell, you're going to be making $9. The $9, that would be your gross profit. However, what if you've got to pay your mom to sit at the stand selling the toilet paper, and she's charging you $100 an hour? The labor, your cost of salary and expenses, your rent, your utilities, those are called overhead. So in the example I gave, let's say you bought toilet paper at $1, you're selling it for $10. On the service, it looks like you're making $9 profit on each one. That's your gross profit. But you have to subtract out your overhead. Now, if you're paying more money just for somebody to be there selling it for you, then you're not making a profit anymore. So whenever your overhead, the cost of running your business, is more than that, a little bit amount of money you're making between what you're selling something for and what you paid for it, it's going to be a loss. So the overheads, expenses like rent, salaries, and the most common way you'll hear it expressed is the cost necessary to operate or run a business. To be competitive with other pharmacies, you need to mark up your Tylenol 325 milligrams, number 100 by 15%. If you pay $36 for a dozen bottles, what price will you sell each bottle? So here's a couple of things, and before I forget, I'll go ahead and remind you, there's two terms, and you'll see them in business math. One is a gross, G-R-O-S-S. So what's a gross? And then another term is case, C-A-S-E. So in terms of retail practice, so not just specific to pharmacy, but a case of anything is 12. A case equals 12. A gross is 12 cases. So a gross is 12 times 12, or 144. So on the PTCE before, they've had questions that'll say you pay $36 for a case. Oh, how much will you sell each bottle? Well, if you don't know what a case is, you wouldn't be able to solve it. So a case is 12. In this case, though, they give you, in this case, they tell you a dozen. So we know we're going to have to figure out what our cost was. What did we pay for it? Then we want to mark up 15%. And so for those of y'all who follow the way that I approach it, I'm doing a markup. It's 15%. I'm going to multiply whatever I pay my cost times 1.15. I'll get my 15% markup and have my answer, and I'll have it very quickly. And so if you understand that approach, then it's terrific. It goes quickly. If you don't, I don't want to confuse you, and don't let me get you confused, or don't worry about trying to understand something if it's making something more complicated. So if you're paying $36 for a dozen, what we sell each bottle? First thing, how much did you pay per bottle? Second, you want to determine your new price with this markup. So since you paid $36 for a dozen, and a dozen is 12, $36 for 12 bottles, you ended up paying $3 a bottle. You just divide 36 by 12, and you pay $3 a bottle. For the markup of 15%, one bottle costs $3. You're marking up 15%. 15% markup. One way to do it's the way I mentioned, 100 plus 15, 1.15, and multiply that times cost. Another way is, what's 15% of $3? So 0.15 times $3 is 0.45 or 45 cents. Then we're going to add that to what we paid, which was our $3, our cost, plus the 15%. And you see, so we just two different approaches to get the same answer. What's the amount of over-the-counter items and prescription drugs dispensed that's automatically subtracted from when the amount of OTC items and prescription drugs dispensed is automatically subtracted from the quantity on hand? This is referred to as having a. And so perpetual inventory. Perpetual is a word like almost like eternal, but with perpetual, especially in terms of pharmacy, a perpetual inventory means that whatever we show that we have on hand in our computer system, or if we have a manual record keeping system, that number is going to be identical to what we actually have on hand. So every time, if I have 900 tablets of a drug and a prescription comes in for 30 tablets, I dispense those 30 tablets, and immediately, if it's a Schedule 2, I go record it in a perpetual inventory book for Schedule 2s. Then my balance is 870. So at any time, a state board agent could come into the pharmacy, ask for my perpetual inventory log for scheduled drugs, go to any page, and whatever quantity is shown on hand, that's going to be how much I have in stock and on hand. Okay, next, how do you calculate inventory turnover? So turnover, what turnover's looking at? You're wanting to see how long is merchandise sitting on your shelf. In pharmacy, when I first became a pharmacist, there was not a single drug that was more than $30 for a month. There wasn't anything like that. Nowadays, we have drugs that are up to $20,000 for a single month. And so you cannot afford, or we had a CVS pharmacy, Zocor 80 milligram, the name brand. They had a bottle of 5,000 pills, and each tablet was $3.70. So that bottle of 5,000 pills cost $18,500. Now, once it became a generic, few people were using the brand. It's so expensive that the drug Zocor 80 milligrams, you can buy it in bottles of 10 and bottles of 30. So if a pharmacy has one patient that gets 30 tablets a month, which is going to be the smartest thing to do? to keep a bottle of 30 on hand and just reorder it as needed, or to buy a bottle of 5,000, thinking you're getting a better price per tablet, and then just watching the bottle expire very quickly. So the whole reason we look at turnover, how much of your inventory is just sitting on the shelf and not moving? The more inventory that's just sitting there and not moving, the more money you have invested that's just being wasted. You could be using it elsewhere more resourcefully. So the way we calculate it, you need to know how much did you purchase over an entire year. So you look at the entire year of your purchases, and then you find out how much inventory do I have on hand right now, today. So you divide 1 year's worth of purchases by how much you have on hand, and that's going to give you your turnover rate. In this case, it tells you you spend $75,000 a month, and you have $200,000 that's in inventory on hand. So y'all heard me say you got to look at it for a whole year. So how are we going to figure out what we spent in a year? Well, if we paid $75,000 a month, you're going to multiply 75,000 times 12. You're going to get how much you spent for a year. Then to get the turnover, you're going to divide that number by how much you have on hand. So the turnover is your annual purchases divided by your on-hand inventory. The first step is we got $75,000 per month times 12 months. We spent that much in a year. The next step is to divide that $900,000 by the inventory that you're keeping on the shelf. 9,000 divided by 200,000 is 4.5 turns. And just to give you an example of how serious this is in business, when I worked at Walmart, we received a bonus, and our bonus was based on profitability, and it was also based on management of hours, resources, so the allotted budget for our employees, and turnover. And so we had to have a turnover rate that was 9 or higher, or if it was lower than 9, we did not get the bonus. One year I got a bonus that was $78,000. So you can see why it was worth my while. I didn't have anything on my shelf that didn't need to be in stock. So that's why we calculate. 4.5 would be bad. You want it close to 10. So 4.5 would be a terrible turnover rate. What marks the minimum level at which each stock will generate an automatic reordering? So AWP stands for average wholesale price. ABC classification, they just made that up. PAR, what does that mean? Well, if you remember what it means, periodic automated replenishment or periodic automatic replenishment. Replenish, that means to replace, and then automated or automatic, so just the name alone, if you remembered the name, you're going to realize that was the answer. And then the other thing is what marks the minimum level, so maximum order quantity, that wouldn't be telling you what minimum, so it's periodic automatic replenishment. A pharmacy's maximum inventory is of 800 milligram ibuprofen is 500 tablets. The minimum's 100 tablets. At the end of the day, you have 50 tablets left on your shelf. How many bottles of the 800 milligram ibuprofen, number 100 tablets per bottle, should the pharmacy order? So something that it takes you a minute to get used to, especially when you're new to the pharmacy program, but don't get confused by all the drug name and strength. They always throw these, it's like a big word or a bunch of extra numbers, and you'll get to where soon you'll just look at that and won't even hesitate. You'll know that's the drug, that's the strength. So how do we calculate what we need to order for our day? How much do we order? Well, the way it works, you have a maximum. I'm not going to intentionally order more than 500 tablets. So if I have one tablet on the shelf, I'm not going to order 5 bottles of 100. If I have one tablet, because then I would have 501. I don't want to go over 500. On the other hand, it says I would have a minimum of 100. So the minute I drop below 100, if I go to 99 tablets, then I need to be filling my shelf back up again. So the way it's calculated, you order the most that you can order without exceeding your maximum, and it'll keep you from going or dropping below the minimum. In this case, you subtract the 50 tablets from 500. So we've got 50 on the shelf. This is the maximum we want on the shelf. So 450, we're not going to order a single tablet more than 450. And so the next step, you look at how they're available. It's a bottles of 100. And then you divide this quantity by how it's available, and you're going to drop it down to the lowest whole number. So if I see here, if I divide this, I'm going to get 4.5. Well, I can't order a 0.5 of a bottle. I see if I order more than 4, I'm going to go over my maximum. And so that's how that comes into play. What's the 80-20 rule? So the 80-20 rule, it explains that in the 80-20 rule, 20% of the items account for 80% of the cost in the pharmacy. And this has to do with newer medicines. For the last decade, we had all these medicines come out. They're monoclonal antibodies. We had especially the HIV medications that are between $500 and up to $10,000 a month, 1 month. And so there's a drug that's used if somebody has kidney disease, kidney failure, and if somebody needs dialysis, there's a certain drug they're going to be using every week, every day, and it costs about $8,000 a month. As a matter of fact, it's the #1 drug expense the government has in Medicaid for people with kidney disease. One box costs about $8,000. If we were in the pharmacy lab, I would have you go back and you could look at the entire front row of the first shelf. And if you added up the cost to purchase a brand new bottle of everything, a full bottle of every single item on the first shelf, not just the row, but the whole facing shelf, the whole thing, it's $1,100. So when you're looking at the quantity of stuff, you've got a whole 6 different shelves on one shelving system. You could order for $1,100. And then there's this one little box that costs $8,000. So it's 20% of the items account for 80% of your investment in your inventory. So what do you call the inventory that's kept as a cushion so you can fill orders in a timely manner? So PAR, if you remember, we just learned that was periodic, automated, or automatic replenishment. Safety stock. Now that sounds like it might be something to consider. Just in time. What is just in time? Just in time items, just in time inventory. That's inventory that you order. Like a patient can tell you a couple of days in advance, I'm going to be refilling this prescription. You order it, you receive it in, you're able to fill it. The patient gets it, they're thrilled. You don't have to worry about stocking it and tying up money. You're thrilled. And an example is Latisse. There's a medication to help grow eyelashes, and it's about $300 a month. It's a medication that obviously it's not essential to life. It's cosmetic. It's something that people choose. If somebody wants to grow long lashes, then the more power to them. People that are using the Latisse, they're almost always very happy to call the pharmacy a couple of days in advance so you can order it and get it from the wholesaler. That way you're not just having to keep it in stock for them. So just-in-time inventory refers to inventory you order just right before you need it. You're not having to keep it. Reorder point, that's just a term for something different. It's your safety stock. And what it boils down to is you don't want to have too much inventory on the shelf. You don't want to tie up your investments. You'd rather put that money elsewhere or use it for other resources. But you also do not want to lose business. You don't want to lose a single customer just from making a mistake and not having something available when it was needed. So we have safety stock, and safety stock, that's whenever you keep just a little bit more than what's the bare necessity to make sure that you're always prepared You're always safe to deal with just something unexpected or an emergency. So the pharmacy, here's an example, just since it's 180 film of Suboxone, 8 2 milligram, but it's sold as many as 240 films in a day. Now the Suboxone 8 2 milligram, they come in boxes of 30 strips. So one thing is kind of to confuse you is all these numbers and these number 30, but in this case, what this is saying is that the pharmacy dispenses 6 boxes a day. Some days they dispense up to 8. How many boxes should the pharmacy keep as safety stock? So if you know that you're dispensing 6 boxes every day, you're going to keep 6 boxes on hand. What's going to be our safety stock? Our safety stock is going to be the stock we need to keep on hand to cover those days where we fill 8 boxes. The way it's calculated, so we know that we need 180 films every day. That's 6 boxes of 30 strips. Some days you need 240 film, which is 8 boxes. Your safety stock's the stock you need to keep in stock to be prepared if you happen to have 2 of those busy days in a row. So now you need to, there's a term called lead time. How long does it take from the moment you place an order till you actually receive the order? For Suboxone, it's 2 days. You place the order today, you're going to have it on Thursday. To calculate your safety stock, you multiply the safety stock times your lead time. So we calculated the most we use in a day is 8. And when you keep 6 on hand, so 2 boxes would be safety, but we've got to factor in that 2-day time. So 2 boxes, and it takes 2 days to get them. If you keep 4 extra boxes, so if you add 4 to the 6, if you keep 10 boxes on hand, you're prepared to have 2 busy days in a row. You'll have plenty coming back in stock to keep filling the prescriptions. So you'll reorder 4 boxes. When a technician checks and repositions the stock, placing the oldest items in the front, this is called, and it's rotating stock. It's the same reason any of you that buy groceries, your mom's probably showed you when you go buy milk, you get the one in the back. You always want whatever, in a pharmacy, it's extremely important that because items have expiration dates. Some expiration dates aren't real long. And so it's, you never ever want to put new product, new merchandise in front. And you'll see sometimes people when they think no one's looking or they might not get caught, but you can always figure out who did it. It's everybody in the pharmacy, it's everybody's job to make sure we're rotating the stock. It's everybody's job every time you go to a shelf. If you're hospital, retail, even compounding, when you go to the shelf, you check the expiration date of the item. You make sure that the one that's expiring soonest is up front, rotating the stock. A wholesaler sends a what that lists all the purchases made that do not comply with the contract bid. What's an incident report? An incident. Well, an incident is an example of an incident. If we were in the pharmacy classroom and we were working on sterile compounding and somebody accidentally poked their finger with a needle, we would have to do an incident report. We had it was an accident, but it was an incident. Diversion, that's theft. That's something that's not going where it's supposed to go. Compliance. Well, if you read this sentence, it says that all the products, everything that was purchased, it did not comply with the contract. Discrepancy. So, now a discrepancy, that report, that would be, for example, if the wholesaler, their report showed they sent me something, but I'm telling them what I received was different. We have a discrepancy. We're not seeing the same thing, and we need to get to the bottom of it. But when you look at these options, it's compliance report. Why is this important? It's for the pharmacy's benefit. Whenever you make a contract with a wholesaler, you negotiate your contract. You negotiate your discounted price, your rebate, your refund, and the terms. Well, part of how they get better prices on their products is by making contracts with wholesalers, bigger wholesalers, or with the direct manufacturers. But they rely on the people that their pharmacies to honor their contracts so that they can. So, for example, if you're my pharmacy technician responsible for inventory, and every product we order that has a generic, you are instructed to order the Tiva brand if as long as it's available. If you ordered Qualitest for whatever crazy reason, even if the patient says, this is what I want, if you order Qualitest, we would be out of compliance. Because our wholesaler, one of the reasons we get a better price on Tiva is because they had expectations we're going to always order Tiva, and using those expectations, they were able to make a contract themselves. Then when you use something other than what's on your compliance list, it's worse. I mean, it's just the worst thing that you can do. But the whole bottom line, it's in the pharmacy's best interest. So compliance reports are never pleasant. Nobody wants to be told you didn't do something correctly, or this is pointed out and this is a mistake, or for whatever reason. But for the pharmacy, ultimately, you want somebody looking into this for you. You want somebody to let you know, oh, you missed this opportunity here. In order to save money, institutions will have a blank and a policy defining allowable therapeutic substitutions. So we had that one exercise last week for you all to read through, and then I printed the answer key. I posted it. I'll show you that in just a second. But it went over formulary, and it was mostly to illustrate or demonstrate the significance of a formulary. And a formulary, there's a lot of drugs, and the more drugs that y'all, as you're learning your drugs and drug classes, you're going to learn that there's what they call me too drugs. Like, let's say there's a drug class of statins, S-T-A-T-I-N. Statin drugs lower cholesterol, and basically they are virtually identical. There's not one that's really any better than another. Their profiles, side effects, interactions are all virtually the same. So a pharmacy and therapeutics committee will assess them, and they'll say, you know what, out of all these, we're going to pick just this one, and this is the only one we're going to carry. So let's say the hospital pharmacy goes with atorvastatin. They have a closed formulary. So instead of being able to write for whatever statin the doctor wants, they can't write for rosuvastatin or lovastatin or simvastatin. If whatever statin they write, it's going to be converted to atorvastatin. By doing that, though, the hospital pharmacy only has to carry atorvastatin and the various strengths, as opposed to 32 different drugs in different strengths. So the formulary, by maintaining a closed formulary, it's a lot of trouble, a lot of work, but that means you're limited. It's almost like saying you're able to practice medicine, but you're limited to this list of drugs. And so the hospitals and institutions, they're closed formularies. Community pharmacies, on the other hand, is open formulary. Community's open formulary, which means a community pharmacy is going to stock whatever inventory they want, and they can order which inventory is needed. Whenever you place an order, you transmit it. The next day, a delivery person will bring in a tote, and you'll receive the tote. When you receive the tote, once it's opened, the invoice and all the contents, you check to make sure you got everything that you're being billed for. Once you make sure that you've got all the contents that were on the invoice, then the next step, you check, you make sure you've got the right quantity, the right products, right package sizes, is going to be posting. And so when the computer, at the end of the day, your computer can generate order list, order for you. It'll generate the order that needs to be transmitted to the wholesaler for the next day. It'll place the order, but it does not change the quantity on hand in the pharmacy, because the computer doesn't know if everything you've ordered is going to be coming in or not. It's only after you receive your order that you can go into the system and go in and change how much you have on hand to reflect what you just received. So let's say that I had 30 tablets of something on hand, I ordered a bottle of 100. The order was transmitted. It's come in. We've already checked it. We've got the invoice, everything. We're going to put it on the shelf. Well, we have to go to the computer and update the on hand from 30 to 100. That way, what the computer shows we have 130, on the shelf we have 130. What if the computer had automatically applied that 100 tablets and then it was shorted the next day? Well, as we looked in the computer, we would think we had 130 tablets on hand, and we wouldn't know until we went to get the medicine that we didn't have it in stock. So this first step is the receiving process. So when you place an order, when it comes in, you receive it. You receive it, you accept it, you receive it. During the receiving is when you're checking everything. Once you receive, so I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. So once you've received, so here, this is the tote comes in, and you receive it. That's the process. Once you received, then you post. So once you've received your order, everything's been reconciled, you update the on hand in the computer. What is the storage process? That's just when you put it on the shelf or the refrigerator. That's where you place it, where it's going to be stored in the pharmacy. The delivery process, that's just when you place an order to the wholesaler, a delivery company, sometimes that's owned by the wholesaler, sometimes it's just a third-party company will deliver it. When should OOS be filled? What does OOS? That means out of stock. So what's an out of stock prescription? Out of stock is, let's say that a patient calls in a refill for medication and you just don't have it. You don't have the medicine in stock. So the pharmacy tech will call the patient and say, listen, I'm so sorry, we don't have it in stock, or the bottle we had in stock, it looks like it's expiring in 3 months. We've ordered a new bottle that's coming in tomorrow. And so that would be considered out of stock. You don't have the medicine in stock to fill it. So an out of stock prescription is a prescription where it was either a refill or a new one. You did not have the stock on hand whenever the prescription came in. So that prescription is just being held until the merchandise comes in. Once it's received, once you've received the medicine, once it's been posted, then you go find any prescriptions that need to be run through the computer or that need to be assembled. So out of stock is filled after receiving, posting, and storing the order. And again, storing the order, putting it up on the shelf. When receiving, the tote with controlled substances should have an intact seal. The seal must be broken by a pharmacist. Verify contents of the invoice must be performed by a pharmacist, and all the above. So I think most of y'all got this. The answer is all the above. But I highlighted B because I wanted to make a point of something. By law, it's a federal law, it's a state law. Controlled drugs, they're going to come in a plastic tote, and it's going to have a security tag that's got a unique numeric number on it and a seal. And you can use just a pair of scissors and you break the seal. But once you break that seal, it'd be obvious to anybody that that tote is no longer completely sealed. It's been, that seal's broken, so anybody could have gotten into the tote. So the law requires that the pharmacist break the seal. The law requires that the pharmacist, now this is only with controlled drugs, that the pharmacist receive the order for controlled drugs, receive and put it up, sign the invoice, and but in real life practice, I've done this myself, and I'm a stickler for the law, and so I'm telling you, for me to do it, I guarantee you're going to see far worse. But I just want you to know, in your practice or your externships, any one of you, like Alexis or Virginia, Bree, if we were working together, y'all would call me John. I would call you Bree, Alexis, Virginia, Elena. We in a pharmacy, you'll learn very, very quickly. The only difference between you and a pharmacist is the pharmacist has gone to school a little bit. But otherwise, like the farm, we rely on each other. And you know, like if you have a pharmacist that's sensitive towards helping you when you're busy and helping to make sure you're not overwhelmed, and then you do the same thing for the pharmacist, there's going to be times where you see you could leave and the pharmacist will be a mess, or you see the pharmacist could use some help you might not have to do, but you have a choice. So you develop a very significant level of trust. Working with each other is very, very common. If I worked with you ladies, y'all would break the seal for me. You would probably check in the inventory, bring me the invoice, and just tell me where to sign, and I would sign it, and probably not even look at the merchandise. And that's a horrible thing because the pharmacist is liable. So there's a lot of lawsuits where pharmacists have lost their license or gotten into trouble because of this, but it's just very common in practice. And you'll understand the level of trust that you have for each other so high. You'll see it in actual practice. Just understand the letter of the law is only a pharmacist can break the seal on a controlled tote, and it's the pharmacist only who puts the merchandise, who receives the controlled drugs and compares them with the invoice. I've had students ask me before, so what are we supposed to do in actual practice? And I'll tell them, you just have to use your instincts. Now, on an externship, nobody's going to ask you to do that. And that's just because they know that I wouldn't allow them to have you do anything that's not 100% legal. But then the moment your externship's over, you're going to find wherever you work, they're going to be asking you to do that. So you just need to trust your instincts. I trust you, any pharmacist will understand this. All you have to say is, listen, my instructor just told us stories about pharmacists who got into trouble, and it wasn't the tech, it was the pharmacist. And it's the pharmacist who's jeopardizing their license. I'm happy to do, if you didn't want me to do this, I'll do it, but I don't feel comfortable. That's all you need to say, and that won't be an issue. So which forms do you need to fill out to return outdated controlled substances for destruction? Something I point out to people, so it's a DEA Form 41. That's for destruction. Form 222 is for triplicate. It's the triplicate form to order Schedule II drugs. 106, this is the form, a document you have to fill out whenever you have stolen or lost controlled substances. So, and it'll happen probably within those first 3 or 4 years of practice. You're going to see a coworker, somebody's going to end up in trouble for getting and stealing. A lot of times it's the pharmacist. But this 106, and if you look at 106, if you just handwrite it out, it's like L-O and kind of a real sloppy S. But think of lost. So if you can't remember, the 222 is triplicate. Triplicate means 3. 1, 2, 3. It's a triplicate form to order Schedule II drugs. 106, that's the form to report a loss or stolen drugs to the DEA. And 41, this is the document you fill for drugs that have to be destroyed or go to a reverse distributor. So when you destroy drugs, you can do it with a state agent and 2 pharmacists as a witness, but the safest bet, whenever you have controlled drugs that just need to be gotten rid of, is to use a reverse distributor, which is a third-party company. They just charge a very tiny fee and they'll handle it, but you have to fill out this 41 form for the controlled drugs. If there's a misfilled prescription and it's returned to the pharmacy, it can be restocked for dispensing to another patient, must be discarded, will be credited by the wholesaler, be covered by the patient's insurance. So in this case, it says it was misfilled, so that means the pharmacy made a mistake. And so the first thing is, it's anything that left. The minute it leaves the counter, it cannot ever be redispensed. So once a product has left a pharmacy, even if it's not left the store, law prohibits from ever redispensing. So whoever absorbs the cost of the loss, it's usually the bottom line of the issue, and it's usually the pharmacy. So by this, let's say that you went to pick up your prescriptions, and it turns out the pharmacy had automatically refilled something you didn't want. You don't realize this till you get out to the car and you're looking and you think, oh gosh, I just paid $20 for something I didn't want. You go back into the pharmacy and they're going to tell you, we can't take it back by law. No, you can tell the pharmacist, I did not order this. I did not want this. What y'all do with it, that's your business, but I want my money back. And the thing is, there are pharmacists that'll take something and as nobody's looking, they'll try to just redispense it. But you think about this, would you want medication when the pharmacy doesn't know what's happened to it? It's been out of the pharmacy's custody. No, you don't know how it's been stored, if it's been tampered with. You have no idea how that medication's been handled. So the minute something leaves the pharmacy, it can never be dispensed to another patient. And then as far as a patient being reimbursed, if it's a recall, so that means the manufacturer has a problem with the drug, the patient's reimbursed. If it's the pharmacy has the option to reimburse them, even if it's the patient made a mistake. The patient might come back and say, I accidentally got this one and my husband only wanted this one. And the pharmacist doesn't have to take the medicine back, but they can, and they can issue a refund. So the most important thing, though, is just to know once the medicine's left the pharmacy, it can't be redispensed. Okay, so let me show you this over in your course content. I put, this was posted yesterday. This is that formulary defined. And what I've done, it doesn't really show up well, but this is actually in a different color. But if you haven't read it, go to that and print it out, or at least at a minimum, read it. Because what I did was I took the article and I gave you all the article and gave it to you and told you to look at it and then maybe write some notes or try to answer some of the questions. I was mostly just trying to have you guys think through, why am I reading this piece of paper? What's a formulary? Did I learn anything after reading this formulary? But when you go through here, you're going to see I've highlighted, like these are the most important words. This is like the most important concept or aspect to this whole paragraph. Then I give you an example. So what is a formulary? And I explain it. And here's an example of 7 different statin drugs. Each one of these comes in at least 4 strengths. And then of these, we have 32 different brand and generics. Can you imagine if a hospital had to carry a bottle of every strength and generic and brand for these drugs? That would just cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. No, that they will pick one and they will make a decision. So it's not an easy decision, but there's a committee that picks one and they use that one for any statin prescription the doctors might prescribe. And then I ask these questions. So what's the system? What's a formulary? It's the list of medications approved by the organization. And so just, I won't just read this to you since y'all are able to print it and read it. Just know that it's where your homework. This right here just shows you Ben Taub or our Harris Health System. So the patients that go to Ben Taub or Harris Health, they don't have insurance. You have to be a resident of Harris County, but the whole Harris Health System operates off of tax dollars from people that pay property tax. And so so if you think about it, the people who don't have insurance, their coverage is not free. Somebody's paying for it. And where's the money coming from? It's coming from taxpayers. So the most important thing our county can do is make sure to utilize taxpayer money as resourcefully as possible so that we can extend the benefits to as many people as possible. And then this just goes to explain the committee for making the formulary. And so I just gave you an example of how they identify which items go on a formulary. So it's just 2 pages, and it's mostly about this, just reading through the 2 examples. It's just to help give you a better, clearer understanding of what the formulary is. And so that was in, when you go to your course contents, it was under yesterday's formulary defined. So that's just for your own information. It was under yesterday. I'm going to just activate it again, just in case somebody didn't look at it yesterday. So now you'll see you have access to this. So just go there, click on print it to read, or at a minimum, take a look at it. Back a week ago on 4/9, that's whenever y'all read the 3-page article, just giving it some assessment. This is the same article, just with the notes that I put in it. Then this is the answer key. You guys did those, the notes. And so, if you didn't look at this yesterday, I'll update it again so that you can look at it. But this is the worksheet that I gave you, and then y'all have to try to answer it using the notes, the PowerPoint, the lecture note that went with the chapter. So it's in your course content. So you'll have access to that. When you click on it, the reason that there's 3, one of them, they're all the very same thing. One is in PDF, one of them is a Word document, one's in RTF, and so it just depends on which system you're using. Like if you have a Mac system, or one will open easier than the other. So that's when you see 3 and they look identical. It's just that's the difference. So you will want to print that out or take a look at it, because tonight, so what you're going to be finishing tonight, you're going to be able to go retake that 20-question quiz from yesterday. We just spent, that's what that presentation was. So everybody should make 100. If you don't, then I don't know what more to do, but you have to go do it. And so as soon as we're done here, you're going to go do this. And then after you're done with this, you're going to go to this one. You'll click on this link. You're going to enter your name and PIMA, and it's 30 true-false questions. And the questions would actually come from the inventory management notes. Also, there's not any like super tricky. Don't worry about, like, if there's something that is a little word or something insignificant, I don't try to trick you that way. If it's false, an example would be if I put the DEA determines a drug's recall classification. Well, that would be false. It's the FDA. And so if it's true or false, if the answer is false, it's going to be there's something very, very significant and clear about it. So I don't want you to ever get just, it can be confusing when you study a question and stay and think like, is there something I'm missing? It's too easy. It seems too obvious. No, as you're reading through them, you're like this, like, oh no, that's true or that's false. So this should be pretty easy. Once you do this, take a photo of your score and submit it. Then moving on to law. So for law tonight, you'll see in your announcement, you get 1 hour to reattempt your open book exercise from yesterday. So this is a second attempt. I accept the highest score. So if you do it tonight and you don't do worse than you did yesterday, you still keep yesterday's score. But my hope is there's some people that have an opportunity to make a better score. If you look at your score and you're pleased with the score, you don't think you need to waste any more time, I don't want you to waste your time. I do want to point one thing out, and that is in your resources folder, you'll find that this is my chapter notes. This is like I pretend I'm a student, and I'm going to show you in just a second so you'll have an idea what I'm talking about. After this, there's a blank table with the laws listed on one side, and I'll just show you while we're here. So this is the law table. So you'll see it's got the law, and then what was the significance to pharmacy practice? So for example, Durham Humphrey, they distinguish between legend and OTC. Does a product require a prescription, or can a patient buy it without a prescription? Kefauver Harris, not only did drugs have to be proven safe, they had to be safe and effective for what they were being approved for. Anabolic steroids, they made, excuse me. Sarge. Oh. I knew it was a little. Sorry. Yeah. Anabolic steroid, that had to do with, there was a time where bodybuilders were just going nuts. Like if big's good, bigger is better. They were getting testosterone and injecting it, just massive doses. What muscle in your body never stops exercising? Well, the way the steroids work is they help replicate cell tissue, the new cell development of your muscle tissue about 5 times faster than would happen ordinarily. And so if somebody uses excess testosterone and they exercise, they're going to get bulkier faster, but they're also going to build up muscles where they normally wouldn't be building them up. People that were injecting this testosterone with massive amounts weren't even thinking about their hearts. And then we just across the nation had this epidemic of these people that were in phenomenal physical health, except their hearts were too big for their bodies. You can't just open up a chest cavity. You can't just squeeze it open and make a little extra space. You can't cut somebody open and put a little cover over. So people were dying. Like they literally needed lung heart transplant or they would die. So they made they made anabolic steroids a Schedule 3 drug. So whenever you see testosterone as a Schedule 3, it's not because it's addicting. It's not because it causes euphoria. It was just to help get it under some very tight regulation. Orphan Drug Act. Orphan drugs are drugs that are used to treat a very, very rare condition. When you have a rare condition, that means you have a limited population. Does a drug company have any interest in producing a medication just for a handful of people? And the answer is no, they wouldn't. So the government came up with the Orphan Drug Act, where drug companies get tax deductions, tax breaks, all kinds of advantages if they will manufacture a product that's up for an orphan drug for a very rare. So that's what you're going to go fill these out and then resubmit this back. Now I'd like for you to do it as a Word document and submit it. And I also know, like, as students, you'll all have Microsoft Word. But if you're not able to do that, then just at a minimum, take a photograph and submit. But get that turned in tonight before the end of the night. So here's the last thing I'm going to show you. In your course resources, we go to lecture notes. This is chapter 2. So you can just see, as you read through the chapter or go through the chapter, guess what? Like, this is in the order information's presented. These are the bullet points for the laws. I try to make it simple, understandable. It's just like if I was a student and I was making notes, or if I was making notes like I was going to give a lecture from the chapters. So this is how I would make my notes for the chapter. But then, and part of what I was talking about earlier, giving you an example, do you think that I could make notes like this from the chapter if I just had the book laying on one side of a bed and the TV on, the phone in my lap, and a pad of paper or kind of on the other side? Or do you think I'd have to be sitting at a desk and have my book propped up and at a keyboard and focused and undisturbed? But when I'm done, I've summarized my chapter, and when I read through it, I could summarize information. I could actually teach what I've learned, or somebody could benefit just from reviewing my notes. So I provided my notes for you guys to use as y'all retake that exercise in chapter 2. So tonight, you have the retake of the 120 question quiz from yesterday. You have the true false quiz for inventory management. When you're done with that, you can decide if you want to print out the notes or use them at all. But then you've got the pharmacy. This is the 50 question quiz from yesterday. You can retake it. You'll see your grade, whatever you got from yesterday. You'll see your score. But if you retake it, I take the higher grade. So you just look at it and decide whether you want to try to make a better grade. And then the pharmacy law table. So you can make the law table. You can probably make the law table just from the notes that I've provided you because they're really bullet point. Finally, the last thing, I mentioned the portfolio project. By tomorrow night, I want you to be prepared, each of you, to let me know which portfolio project you pick. I want you to pick something that you feel like you'll be able to present to the group in about 10 minutes next week, like next Wednesday or Thursday. You're going to have 2 projects, but you're going to do one, and you're going to submit it to me, but you're going to be presenting it to the group next week. And for the portfolio project, you could just give a lecture on, for example, from discovery till the day it reaches the market. What are the steps for a drug and becoming approved? Or you could write one on what are the steps for a patient to dispose of medications after they expire or when they're no longer being used. So if you'll read through the different opportunities that are available in the portfolio and just pick one, you can get that way. You can kind of get started, but just plan on it. Think of it in terms of something substantial enough that you're going to be presenting it to the class like you're teaching a lecture. It's got to be 5 to 10 minutes long. It can be a PowerPoint, it can be a lecture, it can be a poster board, and so. But I'll need you to submit tomorrow night. So you'll submit it at the beginning of the class and I'll approve it. And that way you'll be able to get back to work on it. So does anybody have any questions? Let me see. Okay, guys. Well, so y'all know, and the best way to reach me is how? By telephone. And like I said, so I had computer problems yesterday, so even email wasn't very good. I mean, I was able to get it, but I'm set now. So does anybody happen to have any questions at the moment?
No.
Okay, great. Well, y'all have a great evening. Guys, remember, because I really was desperate last week to reach out and let people know, look, you have something that wasn't completed and you've got time to complete it. So what I discovered, apparently, like you might not check your make sure that you get into a habit of trying to check your emails every day, even if it's the weekend, just in case something came through, just in case there is something, okay? So have a great evening, and if I don't see you tomorrow night, you're gonna have very clear instructions on what to do, but I'm planning to see y'all.
Okay.
Okay.
Good night.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Hello?